welcome, good afternoon, or good morning, if you are in a different time zone. It's Greg here from IAB Europe, and we have our colleague from GfK as well, ready to present, but we will still give it a couple more minutes as we're expecting more participants. Gonzalo, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Hi. So I think we can start.
Okay.
We have already critical mass, I suppose. So good afternoon, everyone. Once again, it's Greg here with the public policy team at IAB Europe. Thank you very much to all of you who have decided to join the webinar this afternoon or this morning if you are in a different time zone. We would like to use this opportunity to explore to present and explore some of the findings coming from the independent research that we have commissioned to GfK and to IHS Markit in the course of 2017 to explore data-driven advertising contribution to the EU. And as you can hopefully see in the first on your screen, all of these results are available online now on datadrivenadvertising.eu. So today we have Gonzalo Zavala with us, who's the Associate Director at GfK, and he will present the findings coming from the study that we have commissioned to the GfK colleagues, and this is a consumer survey. In terms of the order for the day, we have this little intro right now where we would like to walk you through our main objectives when it comes to the research that we have unveiled. This will be followed by Gonzalo's presentation, where he will present the top line results and also include some of the findings coming from specific member states and specific markets. And we have heard from a number of national IAB colleagues that they are indeed interested in these. And at the end, we will have a Q&A session, so you are all welcome to put forward any questions and queries or comments. I understand normally the Q&A session works best via the chat function, so please use this. You should be able to see the Q&A in your right hand bottom corner. If there are any questions of technical nature, you can always try emailing us if the WebEx does not work. You can use my email at mroczkowski@iabeurope.eu. So without further ado, a couple of words about our research. We have unveiled all these three studies in September 2017. So it's been over a month. We've been trying to socialize the results with our own community as well as the policymakers, because the whole idea was to contribute to the discussions that are taking place in the context of the proposed e-privacy regulation. As many of you may know, it puts in question the ability of publishers and other online services to continue offering a value exchange that affords Europeans access to content and services at little or no cost, and supported by advertising revenue. And some of the findings coming from the research, the economic research, as well as consumer attitudes, do support our narratives. And let me, Gonzalo, if you can go to the next slide. Yes, so you can see the key takeaways. The key takeaways from the findings are as follows. We would like to stress the digital advertising's contribution to the EU as a whole, and highlight the fact that for digital advertising to continue to drive positive economic effects, behavioral targeting is essential. So these results are visible in the economic studies that have been prepared by IHS Markit colleagues. And then we aim to organize another separate webinar to discuss these. And then the third takeaway speaks to how consumers react to online advertising, what's their online experience in general, and what we have discovered. What Gonzalo will be talking about today is that it's driven by free and ad-supported content and services, and users would reduce their activity if access became paid for. But there will be more in the presentation today. Just very briefly on a final note, for you to have a sort of teaser for the next webinar, and also to encourage you to have a look at datadrivenadvertising.eu. Some of the findings coming from the IHS Markit studies. You can see that in terms of the GVA, which is a standard measure of contribution to the overall economy, similar to GDP. It talks about growth. Essentially, we have direct contribution of 25 billion euros in the EU 28 in 2015, but it can go as high as over 500 billion euros. And similarly, with jobs, you can also see this multidimensional impact of the industry, starting with 1 million jobs in 2015 in EU, and going up to 6 million when we think about suppliers of suppliers, and eventually increased sales and competition. So consumers themselves. And next slide, please. You can actually click through to the next slide, Gonzalo. Thank you. And one more click as well. Yes. Okay. We can see everything. So that was the basics, if you like, of the economic contribution. And going further, we have IHS Markit colleagues explored the role of data and how data is fundamentally transforming the mechanisms and procedures that underpin the digital advertising. And you will see it quite clearly that that only advertising with reference to data matters. You just look at the conversion rates and an average CPM. It's quite obvious. The comparison between kind of network advertising and behavioral targeted advertising. And then there are also some metrics in the looking at the 2020 forecast and compared with the situation right now. So I guess our message here is quite clear. There is no future in advertising without data. But more about this to come. Hopefully in 2-3 weeks we'll have a separate webinar. And now I would like to pass on to Gonzalo, who will be speaking about the third study, which includes results coming directly from consumers. Thanks.
Thank you, Greg, and thanks again, you and IAB for commissioning this study to GfK, and thanks everybody for joining today. This should take, I think, about 15 minutes, 20 maybe. So first, to give you a bit of context, we interviewed about 1,000 people, at least 1,000 people per market, with a 10-minute interview in 11 markets. This was back in July, so we covered good balanced approach between Western and Eastern European countries, so UK, Germany, France, Netherlands, Italy, Poland, Czech Republic, Hungary, Romania, Slovakia, and Estonia. And then also just take into account that when the results that we are showing here are kind of consolidated from all the countries, and they take into account the size of each country. So say Germany counts a lot more than Estonia, which is a small country, and that's based on their respective online populations. So what we are seeing is kind of representative data from all these countries as a whole. Going to the first findings. So what we found is probably not very surprising, but that is interesting to see a number on it is that most European users are online daily, and they use a variety of devices and engage in a diverse array of activities. So the internet is basically an integral part of their lives, and the vast majority access the internet on a daily basis is 97%. And then it's also interesting to know that 52, so more than half of them access the internet on each of those days for 3 or more hours. Amongst the things they do, they range from some activities that are almost universal, like email and search engines, and then to more specialized ones that like gaming. But for example, 88% use email on a daily basis. 67% look at news on a daily basis. 68% use social networks on a daily basis. So it's quite rich in general. And now, if we look at it by the two markets that get online for 3 or the high percentage of people getting online for 3 or more hours, these were two Eastern European or Central European markets, so Poland and Romania with 60% and 58%, just to give a flavor of what we found. And then the ones that were online for 3 or more hours daily, the least were Estonia and the Netherlands. Now, we look at the age distribution of the access. So going back to people who are 3 or more hours per day online, and we look at it by age. So not surprisingly, again, younger people are more likely to be for longer online than older people. So 67% of 2/3 of 16 to 24 versus 41% of 65 plus. Then we look also at what devices they are using to get online, and then there's a similar figure there. So 99%, so almost everybody from basically 16 to 44 years old use smartphone to get online, whereas the 65 plus is just, well, not just 62%, which is still considerable amount of them, but significantly less than the younger ones. In terms of devices, also it's important to say probably that almost all of them use computers to get online. So computers are universal. It's not that smartphones are necessarily replacing laptops or computers. It's just an extra for the younger ones and for the older ones that have smartphones as well. And also what we believe, but this is kind of our hypothesis, is that this is not age-based. It's not that older people use less technology. It's more like generational, meaning that we would expect that this 67% using 3 or more hours, being 3 or more hours online will remain. So when those 16 to 24 become 25 to 34, then the 67 will stay there, and probably the new 16 to 24 will come even higher. That would be interesting to see. So all this very rich online world is actually predominantly free in Europe. 68%, so more than 2/3 of the people we interviewed, say that they never pay for any content or service online. If we look at it by the different content and services, we see that there's a range of monetization strategies, if you want, but basically the whole online experience is underpinned by, or funded in a way by ads. So from news sites with 69%, going through online video and gaming, and some of the services have slightly different monetization strategies, like online books and e-courses are more probably more successful charging, and then email and instant messaging, they are most likely to be just free without ads. So if we look at the same 68%, the 2/3 that we said that never pay, and then look at it by income, we see that the ones in the lower income are more likely to never pay, and the people in higher income are more likely to at least pay for one service, which is interesting as well. And if we go to look at this again by countries, we also see that the Western countries will be more likely or more likely to pay, so less likely to never pay, and countries in Eastern European countries will be more likely to never pay. So these are the two extremes, 62 and 80. So even Germany, which is the smallest in terms of never pay, is still quite high at 62%. So we asked people also about their satisfaction with paid and free services, and it's interesting to know that online users are more satisfied with their free, this is with or without ads, content than with their paid content. So we found 63% are satisfied with their free content, and 40% satisfied with paid content. So then it's not really a surprise that people are quite happy to just skip not paying because they are quite happy with the content and services they're getting. And then we were also the fact that paid experiences or people are less satisfied with paid experiences than free experiences. We thought it had probably two sides of the coin there. One is that there are some quite good free experiences, either ad supported or free. Free, like in the UK, for example, the BBC is very highly regarded. And on the other side, it's also probably reflecting the fact that people are expecting more from the paid sites because they are actually putting their money on it. So if we look at countries, as I said, the country where people are the most satisfied with their free content is the UK, in fact, with 78%, followed by the Netherlands with 75%. And on the other side of the scale, 35% satisfied with free content in Hungary, and then 55% in a number of countries, Slovakia, Romania, and Germany. And we then ask people what would they do if their most accessed free site or app will become paid for, so we'll just put a paywall. And this was an interesting result because we probably thought it was going to be high, but not as high. So what we got is that 92% will actually just stop using that site. They're not prepared to pay even for their most used site. So this again underscores both the reluctance of online users to pay for their online experiences because they kind of totally feel that's the right to have online experiences, and they know that this is the way it's always been. And also, in a way, the perceived ability to find a free substitute for any online content or service, so people know that even if their favorite site goes under paywall, they will be able to find something similar for free. And we're not even showing the countries here because this percentage was quite high across all markets actually. But we can look at it by income, and again, not surprisingly, those on higher incomes are more than twice as likely to pay in order to keep accessing their most used site than those on lower incomes. So only 5% of those on lower incomes said, by the way, here is the definition of low and high income is just by thirds. So low income will be the 33% of people with lowest income, and high income is the 33% with highest income that we found in our survey. So 12% of those on the high income will be able to pay to keep accessing their most used site. So coming back to advertising, which we already established this kind of funding most of the experiences. We asked people how they felt about advertising online. So most of them are actually positive or neutral about advertising. So positive meaning that they either enjoy advertising because they find something else from it, or that they're happy with it because they acknowledge that because of advertising they have access to the content they need. And neutral is people who just say, I don't care either way, I just carry on with my own business, basically. So, and you can see also that there's different degrees of positivity here, from probably reflecting how intrusive the ads can be. Like in an online video, probably it's a bit more intrusive, so people are slightly less positive with ads on videos, whereas in books and e-courses, they don't mind that much. Overall, averaging all the numbers on the top is 58% of positive or neutral feeling about advertising. Again, going back to individual countries and looking at the extremes, we find that the most positive were Germany and Italy with 65 and 63%. And the least positive were Czech Republic and Estonia with 46 and 37%. Now we wanted to explore this kind of relationship of advertising with content a bit more. So we had an exercise for respondents where they had this slider. So this is actually what they saw in the screen, and they were able to move this. It didn't say 18 in their screens, it was just a circle. They were able to move it from this extreme, that is, I prefer to pay for news, content, and services to keep my browsing data private, to the other extreme, which is I prefer free news, content, and services, allowing my browsing data to be accessed. So people could just put this red circle wherever they wanted. On average, people put it on the positive 18. So this kind of reflects the strength of that feeling. And on average, people were more likely to prefer sharing having free news and sharing their data at the same time. If we look at in percentage terms, these were 69%. So 69% meaning anybody putting the slider on one here or more. Then we had another similar slider that was not including the accessing to data. So this was just on one side, I prefer paid for news, content, and services without advertising. Going to the other extreme, that is, I prefer free news with advertising. And not surprisingly here, the results were even more tilted to the free content with advertising. So basically, European online users are happy for their data to be accessed in order to get free content supported by advertising. That's the main finding there. And then the last exercise we had for respondents was testing a couple of concepts that about user data management for advertising. So the first one was this that you're seeing on the screen, that is basically a bit more stringent cookie confirmation or cookie acceptance page. So what people saw was something very similar to this on their screens. So they said, I would like to be able to approve or disapprove the use of my browsing data for advertising every time I use a site or app, even if this would mean that I have to give consent every time before being able to access the site or app. And they had this same screen, so they see how it will work. The second approach was more kind of on the topic of having the information on request. So it read like this: I would like to be able, with a couple of clicks, to obtain detailed information about how my browsing data is used on advertising, including the reasons I see a particular ad and who is accessing my browsing data, as well as to be in control of this process and being able to regulate or stop the use of my data. So we show this one at a time, and the options were 5 options from agree to disagree. So basically, online users ended up having more interest in being able to access information about their data use than in requiring the cookie approval every time they access a site. So 50% was the score for the cookie approval in terms of people who said agree or somewhat agree. And for the second approach, we had 67% agreeing or somewhat agreeing. So this kind of underscores that, yeah, online users really want transparency in terms of how their data are used, but they are also open to different choices. And to finish, just kind of thinking about this 67%, how it looks across all markets. These are all the markets, and the blue line, the blue dotted line, is that 67% average. And yeah, basically in all markets, significantly more than 50% agreed or somewhat agreed with that approach. From 82% highest in Romania to 59% the lowest in the Netherlands. So I think that's all we had to present at this stage. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask or just write them on the chat page, and then Greg will tell me what they are. We'll try to answer them. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Gonzalo. I think the participants are mainly able to use the Q&A chat function. So now is the time. If there are any questions, or you would like Gonzalo to explain certain aspects, please do it now. From my side, maybe in the meantime, I was curious about I would be curious if you could tell us a bit more about the slider solution that has been suggested by yourself and your colleagues to for these so-called I guess we would call them privacy questions, because you did feel that this is an accurate way to measure such sentiment. Could you give us a bit more background why this is maybe more accurate than another solution, and in what kind of context it's usually used?
Yeah, this kind of forces a choice in a more visual way. So we prefer this. Sometimes when you have just like a agree or disagree with things, which is the other approach, you get a lot of people who are just in the middle, and they don't care much about topic, and then you don't know exactly where in the middle they were. Whereas this, first of all, you have the two options kind of pulling each other apart in a very visual way, and you get two different metrics from this. You get the number of people who were positive or negative as a percentage, which is something similar to what you will get on a normal agree-disagree question. But you also get this average, the 18% or the 27%, which is kind of the strength of that feeling. If it was 50, that means that they felt really strongly about having the free news. And if it was minus 50, that would be obviously the opposite. So yeah, this approach usually helps to kind of get a bit more clarity and a bit more differentiation between two options that are different, and also to make clear to respondents that there are two options that that you have to choose from, and they are kind of one goes against the other pretty much. So yeah.
And I'm not sure now if it has been mentioned or not by yourself, but these are not the only two questions that were there. So there was actually the first question before the slider with I prefer to pay for news or as opposed to I prefer free news, and there the answer was quite different on the other side. So I guess this is all where consumers did declare that they prefer generic news and would like to keep their browsing data private. But then with the two following questions, we could probably say that they have understood the value exchange.
Yeah. So for that one, probably it wasn't the fact of having personalized news. Some people don't even like that, and some other people probably don't see as much value as actually having free news, which is pretty much where the value is. So yeah, I think that's how we can rate that result. I thought there was a question, but I saw it kind of popping my screen and disappearing. So I don't know, Greg, if you can see it.
No, I did see a request for circulating the slides, and
okay.
that we will obviously do. Maybe you have received, but please do check because you may have received a chat message addressed directly to yourself. So you may have another look.
Yes. Okay, I can see here. Probably that's for you, Greg. From this research, can we infer a likely percentage acceptance for data processing at GDPR standards?
Sorry, can you repeat the question again?
Yeah, from this research, can we infer a likely percentage acceptance for data processing at GDPR standards?
Well, we haven't asked questions pointing out, flagging the legal situation, the changes in the law. These two approaches that you've seen with the cookie banner is as far as we got, trying to point out some of the how complex the situation is, and the fact that it may be changing. But I suppose we would need to ask more direct questions to get to be able to leverage some data directly speaking to the GDPR and the changes that will take place.
Any other question?
I'm not seeing any, but that may be also good because your presentation was clear, and I guess the results are self-evident. I would like to just spend maybe one minute on the income levels. We have seen this slide on slide number. I think one of the first slides where you have said that those on lower incomes would be affected more because they are less likely to pay.
Yeah.
And so this is and we have obviously looked at a variety of markets, at different Eastern and Western markets with different levels of economic maturity. Have you noticed major differences when it comes to the income levels and how respondents reacted to this question?
Yeah, on this one in particular, how they access the internet. Yes, indeed, the Eastern European markets were more likely to never pay, and also those on low incomes. So yes, there's definitely that. No doubt about it that those on higher incomes are more likely to have some sort of paid internet experience than those on lower incomes. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Once again, just please let me repeat that we have more granular data from national markets, from respective national markets tested. So if you are interested in that, either colleagues from national IABs or corporate members working in particular markets, we are definitely happy to share this. I haven't seen or received any further questions, so I think we will be getting to a close.
Yeah, if there are any questions later, I'm happy to also, if you send them to me, I'm happy to help with that.
Yes, we are able to facilitate further contact with Gonzalo and with GfK colleagues, or answer questions directly. We will be sending later the slides and the recording, so feel free to socialize these results within your networks. Yes, I just received a message from Ruben. Definitely happy to share some data from the Netherlands, and the same goes for other markets. Thank you very much for your time, for attending this afternoon, and we will be in touch on the next webinar to showcase and to discuss some of the results coming from the economic research commissioned to the IHS market. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Gonzalo.